Lincolnshire, and actually I'm in one of the bit of Lincolnshire that's actually got some hills. So it's by the coast, it's lovely, and I'll tell you more about how I got up there. But it's lovely getting back, where I got sober was in Gloucester. I live just between Gloucester and Cheltenham, so I went to city meetings and big meetings, and moving to rural Lincolnshire, your choices of meetings are shrunk, and you have to travel quite a long way for them. So yeah, so it is lovely to be back in a nice big group of recovering strength, hope and experience. So now, I've always said, my name's Lauren, I'm an alcoholic, so that's why I'm here, because of alcoholism. And I was taught by my sponsor years ago when I first got sober that if you're ever asked to do a share, you say yes. Even sometimes when you might not want to, because there might be a very good reason you got asked that night and for that person. So, but it's 3,134 days today since last episode. I do that in days. I mean, I know years, months, obviously, but the days are important to me. I share it because it is one day at a time. And I've had days where I'm far less sober in my behaviour and thinking and isms than somebody who's only been in 4 weeks. So I know it's got to be one day at a time. So I'll give you a little bit of where I've come from, what happened to me, and my history with drinking and alcoholism and things. But really throughout all of this is, for me, from this testimony, it's Jesus that's the hero in this. Because he really did, and I still, I'm praying for a miracle for my friends at the minute, with very, she's looking to die. But as I keep, it's going to happen, it's the cancer. But as it's coming, I also know full well, faith can move a mountain, the size of a mustard seed can do it, because he did it for me that time. Childhood, no great incidences or traumas, all was well. My family drank. My parents drank quite a bit, but not excessively, not to the point that it was uncomfortable in the house. It was a daily have a drink, relax. I can't claim it was anything that started there, but I did always feel odd as a child. I always felt I didn't quite fit in, as one as, the square peg in a round hole, as one as my fellow alcoholics always describes himself. He just always says that was him, square peg. He couldn't seem to connect with people, couldn't seem to be liked by people, couldn't seem to keep friendships or have decent friendships. And whatever happened, all these people around me didn't seem to really go, Lauren, you're amazing. Like, I think I felt I needed to be felt like. I needed that affirmation and that support and that security. I didn't seem to ever get it. And I think what I've learned since going into recovery and all the meetings and learning from all the other alcoholics I meet and the steps, is I was very frightened. Everyone thought I was confident and outgoing, and I'd perform and do acting and all kinds of things, and I think I was very frightened and just felt all of that was performance just all the time. So I got a lovely mix in my brain of ego and fear all at the same time, trying to settle down with each other, and it didn't really go well. And I remember, and I do also think, as well as kind of the makeup of the brain, and I was talking about it with my friend on the way here about the genetic disposition there seems to be in some families for alcoholism, and be it that maybe it's a disposition that you can't, your cut-off switch isn't there. I'm not a person of more. I don't have cut-off switches with sugar, nicotine lozenges. I have to control, to do that, otherwise I'll sit and just eat a packet. That's not the way they're supposed to work. But sugar, I struggle with moderation. But my first taste of alcohol as a kid, and I loved it. I mean, when we're talking young, I suppose there'd be, sometimes you go and drink if you're at a meal at that, my generation was brought up with, but also nicking it in the kitchen. My parents would put a glass down and just leave it, go into another room. It seems bizarre to me now. You put a glass of alcohol down, leave it, don't finish it in one. But they'd leave it because they weren't, like me, an alcoholic with a problem with it. And I'd go in, I'd make an excuse at like 8 or 9 that I was going to go through to the toilet, to go through to the kitchen, to nick a quick sip of alcohol. And it didn't strike me until all these years later, that's not normal. that was not a normal reaction to alcohol, but it was lovely. And so I was always nicking it and trying to nick it. And I also I didn't have friends to go out with and drink on the street corners, so that was never a problem with my parents because I didn't have anyone to do that with. But as I got teenage years and more confident and found a bit more of a personality, or an identity or a mask to wear or so, I started playing rugby. And I loved playing rugby, but it comes with a certain culture, and I loved drinking in the bar afterwards, and that fueled further fun Lauren that was a bit more relaxed, Lauren that was a giggle, and it just felt really good to have drinks. So that would be where your kind of teenage allowance would go to, was going towards alcohol. And I suppose one thing to say as well as that, with being younger, is I didn't really grow up, me and my mum chatted about this since, and I'm not going to upset anyone, but emotional literacy. She did the best she did, and a blooming good job considering her upbringing as well. But as the years went by, that fun alcoholic became annoying, leery. As it went past the years, getting towards the end days, a very angry drunk, because I'd always drunk to take the angry feelings away, or the negative feelings, and my alcoholism is a symptom of what's going up in there, the isms in my head, and the lies that I believe about me, lies that haven't come from God. God doesn't do any of this stuff, but it's in my head, the way I view myself. And I just, the alcohol was no longer taking me away, it was making them worse. I was getting angrier. So I was a real little Jekyll and Hyde drunk. And I didn't go out to drink much, because actually when I went out, I'd be around other people that drank normally, and it was horrible. They would take forever to drink. I don't know if anyone's associated, but take forever to drink, and you just itching to go and get another drink, and you're just, shut up and stop talking and drink, please. And it was that I'd always make an excuse to leave early so I could go home and have a really, really good drink. And it would be like, I just want to go into my pyjamas or an excuse and relax. It wasn't. It was about the alcohol. It went on, and after work, I'd be in the fridge looking for a beer before I take my coat and shoes off after work. And I always had justification for a drink. I never drank without reason. I could come up with some cracking ones, and I'm sure we can all with our addictions think of how we can justify it. And I remember I kept my job to the end. Those yets hadn't happened. I was a functioning alcoholic of some kind, but I had still had a job, hadn't lost the licence, hadn't lost my licence, and still the marriage. My husband was, my late husband, he was so relaxed. I think that's the only reason he didn't divorce me, was because it would have been too much effort. So I still had those things, but I just was drinking more, and I couldn't go a day without a drink. And I tried so many ways. In the big book, it describes them the different ways. I could drink of water between each drink, because maybe that would stretch it out. It was something to do with the fluid intake or the stimulation in my mouth. And I tried this drink with that, with this, all the different ways I tried to moderate my drinking. But I would still end up in the same situation to look at it, that every time I'd be there, towards the end, with the whiskey, pretty much a bottle of whiskey a night, looking out. I've got a clear memory of when I lived in Gloucester, we lived really high up on the hills, and looking out, a beautiful view, and I could see where I worked, and yeah, well, I'm going to show you. And I was drinking this stuff, I'm poisoning myself and killing myself slowly to there, because it was people, places and things, because the world didn't run like Lauren felt the world should run. It was not according to Lauren. I was trying to be the ringmaster, and it wasn't working, and it was just really hard to be around people. And for some reason, people seem to find me a bit uppity and tense. Can't think why. So of course, I rub people up the wrong way. I see that now. At the time, I thought I was really impressive as a person, but they were the ones with the problem, really. I tried therapies, counselling, talking throughout life, like depression and those things, and I was great at telling every single therapist and counsellor, even when I was paying them, exactly what I thought they should hear, not actually what was really going on. CBT is a work of fiction. I mean, it's different now, but I used to have a worksheet to go home and do. I fill it in 5 minutes before, and I'd like to look like the A-star student, and then go, oh my God, yes, you really thought that through. Well done, well done. Thinking I drank through the rest of the week, but I'm glad you like that bit of paperwork. And the same, I tried, it was a turning point there in Gloucester, you know, I think it's different bits in different counties, but the kind of funded service the council kind of run, and I went to them, I went in, and I said, you know, I'm worried about drinking. And I tried that, and they didn't do abstinence, they do, I can't remember what it said, not controlled drinking, I can't remember the name of it, but they had a different approach from abstinence. And I'd have meetings with them, and I couldn't, because I worked, I couldn't make the daytime support groups, so it would just be a one-on-one with what I later found out was somebody in a gap year doing a psychiatry degree. Right. You know, and he said about doing, but again, I sat there and told him all the things, like instead of going home and having a drink, I was going to take the dogs for a walk first, and then maybe with the money I saved, I was going to go to the gym to work out some of the stress and go swimming, and I had all these great ideas. Why? Did none of them, and I would, there was one stage I was told try low alcohol drinks. So I thought, oh great, you're not saying to stop drinking low alcohol drinks. Yeah, I can do that. So I'd go and buy a box of low alcohol wine and drink a couple of those in the evening. That wasn't quite what they were getting, I think, but I couldn't have the off switch. I was useless at it. We tried marking the bottles, all sorts. And I used to blame my husband for it, because he was a heavy drinker. And I used to thinking, oh, if only, you know, maybe if we split up, I'd be all right. You know, I'd consider, like, you know, I'd stop drinking. I wouldn't want alcohol if he wasn't drinking around me. But you see, he got sleepy when he drank at that stage, and I'd be really, and it came to a point I suddenly realised, I like it when he falls asleep, because the rest of that bottle's mine. I don't have to share any more of this. And it was great. And I was waiting for him to go so I could then go and finish the rest of the alcohol that was there. And I was raised in Church of England Christian, so God to me was not an alien when I came in recovery. He's been there through life, and at times I've handed over to him. And so I prayed a lot. I did pray for this, and I told one friend who's a Christian, I didn't tell many people about my problems with drinking, and I told one friend, and I'd pray for recovery, and I'd pray for healing, and I'd go up for prayer ministry, and I'd try all those things, and I'd try praying, you know, God help me, or God get me out of this, you know, I'm turning to you, God, I'm trusting you, but can you help me not to go to the car after work, Lord, give me the strength not to. But they were giving me prayers, it was give me the strength, Lord, help me, not actually, I'm laying this at your feet, take it all, take it, I don't want anything else, but this is to go on. And it led to the point where I took an overdose of all my medication. I've got a few other health problems, and I took an overdose one night, drunk. And my husband got me to hospital, and it was very serious, but all was well afterwards. And it was control, I think. I just couldn't stand not having control of my life anymore, and I couldn't stand those voices in the morning anymore. The gates of hell, the devil on my shoulder telling me what a load of rubbish I was. Weak-willed. Every time, they're just lying to God. You keep saying you're going to try, and I just felt like such a failure for God, really. Here was a Christian who went to church every Sunday and could not stop drinking. And I felt low for God there. Of course, since I attempted to stop the drinking, it built a bit. So did down a bit, but still went back up there. And so one time I used to go with this friend who I told about it to this place in Gloucestershire, Harn Hill Centre for Christian Healing, and it's a wonderful place. Friday morning, so I'd go when I went on holidays because I was a school teacher. I'd take him, he could drive, he was elderly, I'd take him, and we'd go to it. Very beautiful spiritual service, and they would have prayer ministry there. That was a big part of the service, to pray with people. And they'd meet beforehand and get kind of words. And I'd had prayer there before, kind of trying to ask for it. I don't think I spelt it out then when I asked for it. But this time, as we pulled and parked the car, and Paul just brought it up, he said, how are you doing with the drinking, by the way? And handing that over. And I was like, service, and at the point that the prayer was just kind of in the middle, and the communion comes afterwards. Now, my problem with having prayers at this service had always been, it was on a Friday, and they do communion after the prayers, and I wanted to stop drinking. I'm not saying it's a problem with the church. The church has got it right, but me as the alcoholic, when I'll go for a prayer about my drinking problem, oh, communion wine afterwards. And that was all my brain thought, communion wine. Even that was like, oh, free on a Friday. But it's also on a Friday night, and Friday was the blowout, the night you could really blow it out. They were my excuses, aren't they? Because they're a bunch of excuses and rubbish. This time I sat at the end, and I really am feeling still in love with God, still feeling kind of loved, but feeling quite despondent about what it could be that could help. And they came and they read the words, and one of the words was somebody reading a bit of paper, and they had a few different things, and somebody with a problem, an image of somebody pressing grapes, like the old, when they press the grapes to make the alcohol, pressing grapes over and over again. Somebody with a problem with alcohol, feeling there's no way out. Oh, got sugar there, but good floor, you know what I mean? And he went out for prayer, and I thought about it, and I felt prompting. And I sat there and went, it's probably not for me, is it, God? And it just felt like he said, how more obvious do I need to make it to you? You know, it's like, oh, right, was it for me then? Okay. So I went out for prayer, and I think, even though I'm not looking back, I actually spoke to the lady, and actually I got to know quite a lot afterwards, who was probably the person who'd had that message, because the way when I came up to her with this prayer request, and said, the one I'm responding to, her face lit up. And I think she was somebody who knew by the way she prayed with me. She maybe had experienced somebody with addiction. And we prayed. But the service had been the Jesus heals blind Bartimaeus. I think we've got it up here. Yeah, it's very switched in. But I'll read it through, because this is what the sermon had been, and this is what made the difference that day with that miracle. And it was a miracle, because I'll tell you more about it. But then they reached Jericho, and as Jesus and his disciples left town, a large crowd followed him. A blind beggar named Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, was sitting beside the road. When Bartimaeus heard that Jesus of Nazareth was nearby, he began to shout, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. And he kept doing this. Be quiet, many people yelled at him. But he only shouted louder, Son of David, have mercy on me. When Jesus heard him, he stopped and said, tell him to come here. So they called the blind man. Cheer up, they said, come on, he's calling you. Bartimaeus threw aside his coat, jumped up, and came to Jesus. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus asked. My rabbi, the blind man said, I want to see you. And Jesus said to him, go, your faith has healed you. Instantly the man could see, and he followed Jesus down the road. And they'd given this talk before about it. So when I sat there, after that prayer message had been read out, and I'm going, I don't think I could emotionally take going up, having prayer for healing, and then going and drinking tonight again. How do I do it? Again, But the sermon had been really, really good, the talk, and about this man, and he'd been nearby, and he felt, Bartimaeus had felt there was hope nearby. He just felt a tiny bit of hope. You could hear this voice, couldn't say anything, but you hear the voice, and you could get excited buzz of people talking, and there was hope in the air, and a sense of hope. And he had called out, and he called out, and he didn't give in. He called out, and he called out, and he called out. He was getting quite gobby, and the rest of the crowd were getting quite fed up. You imagine this great preacher comes to town, this person is yelling all the way through it. But Jesus stopped and said, tell him to come here. Tell her to get up and go for that prayer. It was almost like, Lauren, Bartimaeus listened, you listen. You go up and you ask. And it stopped. And I went up and I said, and they said, what do you want to ask? Like Bartimaeus, what are you asking? Don't ask for help with your alcoholism. Don't ask for help to stop drinking, which is what I'd always done. What do you want? Tell him. And so we said as part of the prayer, I said, Jesus, I want to stop drinking. Jesus, I can't do this anymore. Jesus, please stop. I'm an alcoholic. Heal it. Get rid of it. And all I can say, poof, here we are. Look, here we are. That was it. There were no angels, no choruses, no shivers, no falling on the floor. It's just when the communion came next, I had no interest in having that wine. There wasn't a thought about the wine. I then got home that night. My husband, he carried on drinking, but that was fine. That was no problem because I didn't want the taste of that alcohol. I didn't even fancy a beer, and I love beer. Didn't fancy beer. Didn't fancy anything. I just didn't. And I got to Sunday, and my friend Paul was at church, but I had to basically, I was so buzzing by Sunday. Because basically, I remember sitting up, watching the clock and like an app on my phone, because I've tried the sobriety apps, but this time I reset it, and this time, and actually staying awake to see it climb to 24 hours. I had managed to go 24 hours without a drink. That prayer, this story of Bartimaeus when he stood up, and that moment when actually I heard God say, Lauren, how much more obvious do I need to make it for you? I've stopped for you, I've given this message, you get up now and you ask me what you want, tell me. I had that faith and that moment and I believed. And I could ask him and I put everything at the floor. I didn't ask for help or anything, I literally said, I'm broken and humble, you take it, I hand it over. And that's what happened. And very excitedly went and told my friend after church that I just didn't want it, didn't want alcohol. But then I found AA, because all of a sudden, I don't know, I had something, you have evenings when you're not getting drunk and smashed. There's something that happens from 5 o'clock onwards till you go to bed. And I was like, what do I do with this? I thought, what do I do? Because I was aware that this great thing had happened, but there was also something else I needed as well. I was aware. And I stood at the kitchen window thinking, what are we going to do? I'm quite bored actually. And it was AA, give it a go. Because I've been wanting to go to AA for a number of years, but I found lots of reasons to put it off. I'd done the tech list years ago on their website, and I only got 11 out of 12, so AA can't have been for me. And you're all probably a string holding the trousers up and all sorts, didn't they? Dodgy men in raincoats. And then I went to a church meeting once where there was an AA meeting happening upstairs, and all these very smart dressed people and ladies and people laughing and people coming from work and chatting. I was like, oh, not like that. But I just kept like, I thought, well, maybe they'll referalise me, and what if I fail there as well? But anyway, so I went to AA, and I was late for the meeting, but I knew if I didn't go there, I wouldn't go. I just wanted to go for it. And I went there, and it was home. The person speaking, so different to me in life, culture, size, everything, and he was speaking my thoughts. It's like in that meeting, somebody had taken the top of my head, got out my brain, and they were all speaking Lauren's language and way of how they felt, feelings, emotions, and I was home. I knew where I was. And so then I started doing the steps and going through them. And I was still wanting to run the show. I mean, I sat in my first meeting doing the 1, 2, 3. Well, I'm here, so I'm powerless over alcohol. So that's all right. I came to believe, I've already got faith, so that's okay. And step 3, I've handed my life and my will. I start step 4 then. Because that was my thinking, and I wanted to get through them as quickly as possible. But amazing sponsor took me through it very, very slowly. And in Isaiah 43, in step 3, but those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not grow faint. And I discovered a restart button for life and all of life, and it's all life in my wildest dreams, and I'm broke, and life has been a bummer, and I lost my husband, and when the daughter was 3, and there's been some crap, but it's so better than I could have ever imagined it would be 8 years ago, because I like who I am now, and I like what I do for God. I said I would talk a bit about step 11, but I've gone on too much. Come back here in other places. But the step 11 is a daily part of life. Sometimes I don't give it as much time as I should. So please, this is practice, progress, not perfection here. But I can pray. I can pray improperly, and I cannot pray enough. But what I can't do is, you can never pray sincerely to God. So I make sure, is whatever way I'm doing it, I'm being sincere in my love and thankful and gratitude for everything He's done. And there's when I first recovered, Colossians, devote yourself to prayer with an alert mind and a thankful heart. And I am grateful throughout the day. I alert myself to gratitude points in prayer and that conscious contact with Him. And, I do the physical in the morning, the Joe and Shirley tapes, I don't know if you heard them, but they talk about the morning routine, how we get up, we take care of our bodies, we go to the toilet, we dress, we do all these things, we feed the dogs, we take all part of this, but whenever we're taking part of our mind, whenever we're taking care of our spiritual self, we've got that ready for the day, because it's our thoughts that lead to our actions. It's that way round. And so by taking my time in the morning in different ways, because some mornings with the pressures of life it has to be done. Sometimes I can squeeze in a good bit of quiet time and listening time. Sometimes I'm arrow praying until I can take a moment to breathe and sit down and do it. And so it's in different ways, but God is always there. And what I learn more, and I had to learn, is to listen as well, to actually listen back and let Him do some of the talking. But one big difference is that even though I do it sometimes imperfectly, step 11, there's no me in it. I'm not self-centered in it. I can't exalt God and myself at the same time. So the I goes out of it. It's the what I can do for others that day and those prayers. And even if I'm really struggling with thoughts, and there's been times in my life where I've been really, really angry at some people, like shaking, feeling sick, angry. And my only response is like, pray for them. I can't. I really can't. Pray for the willingness to pray for them. So every day I pray for the willingness to pray for them. And then I can pray for them. And now we're in contact. And relationships are restored. And it's all good. So sometimes it is a bit of a sacrifice, and you've got to discern what God's saying to you. But that's where our programs and our Struggle Protect programs and our pastors and our sponsors are brilliant, because they're another discerning voice as we do our step 11 and sharing with each other. We're going to meetings and we hear, and I would say AA is like my second church, because I very often can sit there and think and discern and hear and go away and think about maybe what God wants me to do or how to respond to something. And I do, I'll just give an example, like there's a poem, my friend who I told about alcoholism, he died last year, and he gave me, after my husband died, this little God's promises, that God has not promised sun without rain, joy without sorrow, peace without pain. But God has promised strength for the day, rest for the labourer, light for the way, grace for the trials, help from above, unfailing sympathy and undying love. And I prayed for God to save my husband, and I prayed and prayed, and it was His will done. It was not the plan. But I trusted in God more than before then. It didn't rock me because I was no longer all about the I in life. The world didn't rotate around me the same way it did. I was a small part of what I was for somebody else and for other people. And I had the programme, and all my fellows they stuck by me and what they did for me in those few months after, well, years afterwards actually. They were amazing. But I very much knew that all of us, my family, my whole family, were dearly, dearly loved by God. And even though my husband hadn't quite fully come to faith, I knew he was loved, and I knew God was going to take care of us. And He really, really has. He really has redeemed the situation in so many different ways. And I lay it down at Him. And I set free, we turn our lives and our will over to the care of God. I imagine it in the morning when I'm praying for some things I don't know what I'm praying for about. Actually, there's some people in my life at the minute, I don't know how to pray for them, because I really don't know what to do about these people, but I know He does. So that's enough. So I turned my life over to him, and he scooped it up, and he put control, and what he's moulded, even in the tragedy of it, has been blinding. Sometimes taken some looking for, but it's been blinding, and there's been a few arguments between us along the way, but he created the whole world, so I'm sure he can take a 5'3" little girl screaming. But yeah, so, but those people then, I turn over, and they fall to his feet, or he catches them. And I just hand things over like that to him. And sometimes I listen to the Lord make a channel of peace as well. If I need to really get my thinking in order, that I'm there for others and not for me. That my hero, like that first song today, which I hadn't heard before, but it's wonderful, is I'm just a nobody, telling people that the one that saved this and did this for me. I think it was your meeting. Yes, I'm really used up your time now, so I will stop there, but thank you very much. And it's very special to be here, very special. I met the Our Father's House of Harvest a few years ago, and I thought it was incredible. And then just my friend said, oh, this is me too. I didn't realise it was Our Father's House starting up here, so that was a real thrill. So it's really lovely to be here, because I've prayed in many AA meetings for people who've come in and they're starting to do their step 3, or they're still struggling with their step 2 or step 3, and you know, one chap said, I'll try and start him playing bongo drums to see if they're my higher power, and I can find my higher power playing the bongo drums. And I was secretary at the time, so I memorised a little prayer for this fantastic chap. I said a prayer for him like that, and a few months later he comes and goes, I'm starting going to church. So there's lots of times where God is working so powerfully in AA, so powerfully, that it's wonderful to really come to a meeting where we can really shout and sing for that joy. So